Absolutely. It is very much an internal battle. And there's a couple of really interesting things about imposter syndrome that I learned as I began to study it. Before I wrote this book, I spent a couple of years studying this phenomenon. And number one, it's more prevalent among high achievers. So the more ambitious you are, the more driven you are, the more you're stretching yourself and trying new things, the more likely you are to run into situations where you feel in over your head, inadequate, ill-prepared, whatever the case may be. And so, but it's also that internal battle, that fear of other people figuring out that you aren't all that they think you are, causes us to withdraw and to sort of suffer in silence in a way.
Have you seen any research specifically on men? And what do you feel like, how do men experience it maybe different than women?
Yeah. I have seen research on men and women, and I've read dozens of research studies in preparation for my book and the speech that I've been giving, and some of the work that I've done with business leaders around this topic. And so what I've seen is, yes, the early research, it was, again, we're going back to the 1970s. It was very focused on sort of women in corporate America, women entering the quote man's world of business, and the struggles that women had feeling like they could measure up. But before too long, someone figured out that men get insecure too. And more recent studies, many of them have shown that imposter syndrome affects men and women equally. There's no difference in how often, how frequent, or how powerful it is. There is a difference, though, in the willingness to talk about it.
I think it's true. everybody has these thoughts, but they really are just thoughts at that point, right? But it does impact your actions at some point. The longer you have them, the more you believe them. Your thoughts are driven by your actions. So that was definitely my story. And I'll just share a little bit about that. And I'm interested to see what I'm going to ask you at the end of that story, which is, so I felt like I should be getting promoted, right? You should want to get promoted. But I wasn't really interested, I don't believe, in being a part of the senior leadership team. And I didn't see them as maybe people that I always agreed with, which that's fine, right? You don't always have to agree with the leadership team. But I think there was a part of it that I was worried I wasn't going to fit in. Like I was different. I looked at people first. Results, were also important, but I felt like only looked at results first, not people. So I felt like, am I going to fit in? And so I think some of that impacted my ability to show up in the best way, my ability to go and present to them in the best way. And I guess I viewed it later, after I left the company, as a bit of self-protection. And so I'm curious if you've seen anything around like the self-protection side of you're doing something to keep yourself safe and you may not realize it at the time. Yeah. Yes.
A big theme in my book and when I talk about this is the fear of failure. That imposter syndrome, there's a voice inside your head that is trying to convince you that your success isn't real, that is sort of telling you this story that that failure of any kind, even a little mistake, is going to be fatal. That a failure on your record is going to mar you and tarnish you, and it's going to be your undoing. And so it does push you into that safe space of don't take a risk, don't be vulnerable, don't do anything that you might not succeed at, because that failure is going to be detrimental. And the truth is that failure is a great learning opportunity.